How's it going, guys? Welcome to another edition of Nerdy in Many Ways, and here's my college football week 4 review. And now I released this a little bit later than I usually do because a lot of family things happened this week. A lot of things kept getting in the way of my schedule, and so this is why this review is coming out so late in the week. But regardless, here we are. Didn't want to miss posting out this video for you guys. And so let's get into the thick of week 4 of college football. Before we officially get started, I want to start out with a little story about something that happened last week. So I was going through Instagram. I follow a lot of college football pages, and so I was seeing a lot of these different posts about different teams, different schedules, uniform combinations, all this great stuff. And I come across this post that listed the top 10 teams in the nation and the amount of ranked opponents they had left on their schedule. And, this caught my eye, so I was just like, all right, let's see the comments on this. Because a couple teams don't have a ton of great teams on their schedule left. I mean, specifically Clemson. Clemson is in the ACC, and the ACC is really struggling this year. And so, of course, with that, a lot of the comments were, the ACC sucks, the ACC is terrible, Clemson is in a weak conference, even though they destroyed Alabama last year. People tend to forget that for some reason. But and a lot of people were commenting that all these top teams don't have tough schedules. But there was one comment that really caught my eye, and it wasn't in a good way, because I see this comment, and I immediately started laughing. Almost to a point where I'm just like, what? Because the only thing this person said in his comment was, Utah is better. Oh, that's adorable. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I just bursted out laughing because it was the most ridiculously football incompetent comment I have seen in a long time. Now, don't get me wrong. I respect the Utah football program because they're always a tough team year in, year out. Very well coached, have a lot of great athletes. But to be so blind as to say that Utah is better than the teams like Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Ohio State is just a new, a lower level of blindness. Because, again, Utah is a great program. Don't get me wrong, a very strong program in the Pac-12, always in contention for the Pac-12. But no team in the Pac-12 can beat any of those teams in the top 5. I'm convinced of that. None of them can. And so to say that Utah, a team that won't even get out of the Pac-12 as the Pac-12 champions, can beat a Clemson, Alabama, or Georgia is ludicrous to me. And I loved what happened this weekend because it proved my point. Because USC and Utah played this week, and USC hasn't really done anything since, of course, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart. They've made some bowl games. Of course, they had the whole bowl game suspension. They've had some great players come through there. But as far as team-wise, they haven't really done anything. But to see that team with their backup quarterback, who was third string at the beginning of the year, throw for 351 yards and 3 touchdowns to beat Utah this Saturday, or I guess this weekend, I can't remember which day it was, is absolutely hilarious. Because, again, it proves my point. It proves that Utah could not get out of the Pac-12 or even beat a team like USC, who wasn't even ranked, and yet people think they could have been in the top 5, and some even analysts were saying they could be in the playoff, which I immediately thought was absolutely absurd. And so that made me feel good inside to see that turned out the way it did, because it showed, again, yes, Utah is a good team, but they're not to the level some of these people think they are. We got to tone it back a little bit on this Utah hype year in and year out. Next game I want to talk about is something I've also talked a lot about the past couple weeks. And I mentioned how Michigan is, at least in the past couple years, an overrated team. Shea Patterson is an overrated quarterback, and Jim Harbaugh is an overrated coach. Now, I respect Michigan a lot, but, again, I'm going to stick to that. They are overrated, and they showed that this week against Wisconsin after losing 35-14. And Wisconsin it really was just a dominant game by Wisconsin. Jonathan Taylor had 203 yards and 2 touchdowns, even furthering his claim for a possibility of winning the Heisman. And, Jim Harbaugh even afterwards said, we got outplayed, we got outcoached, we got out-executed, everything. And so, it was nice to see that me talking about them being overrated actually was shown in this game. I mean, I'm not one to gloat or not one to rub it in your face saying, hey, ha, I told you so. But again, it's just nice to see that some things that I've noticed and seen actually show in games, right? But I did get humbled this week with some of my predictions because, as some of you might know, I'm on the record of saying this. University of Central Florida might be onto something this season. And then Pitt goes and decides to do this.
Down and 3. Davis. Matthews. Got it!
Yes, unfortunately, UCF got upset this week by Pittsburgh, or I guess the University of Pitt, whatever you want to call them. And Pitt did a fantastic job. I mean, really humbled me because I really was expecting UCF to make another run at an undefeated season this year and hopefully make a run at the college football playoff because, again, I like the underdog. I'm a Boise State fan, so if there's a team out there that isn't necessarily a Power 5 team and, you know, they make a run like that, I hope for them to at least get a chance to get into the playoff or something like that because that's just who I am. But it does kind of boggle my mind a little bit that there's many people out there that really don't like UCF. I was genuinely shocked after seeing some of the posts on social media as far as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter is concerned about UCF losing, how people were glad that they lost. And I was like, really? That's kind of odd because I feel like a couple years ago everybody was cheering on the underdog. And my last thing, where the heck did UCLA come from? Like, UCLA has been a garbage program for the past few years, and then all of a sudden they whip out this ridiculous game against Washington State, beating Washington State 67-63. I mean, if you stayed up late enough to watch this game and you're a defensive-minded guy or a defensive coach of any kind, you ripped your hair out off your head. You don't have any hair left after this game because there was zero defense. Like, absolutely no defense. The least amount of defense I've seen in my entire life. It was ridiculous. I mean, just looking at the stat sheet of the quarterbacks alone, D. Thompson Robinson, the quarterback for UCLA, had 507 yards and 5 touchdowns, which already in and of itself is a highlight. But then you go over to Washington State's quarterback, Anthony Gordon, had 570 yards and 9 touchdowns, and Washington State still lost. How does your quarterback throw for over 550 yards and throw 9 touchdowns and your team still loses? I mean, I tell you what, it's Wednesday right now. That defense for Washington State is still running sprints. I can guarantee you that. They are still getting punished and chewed out by their coaches because that's insane. For your quarterback to throw 9 touchdowns and for you to still lose. That's just ludicrous. I mean, I don't understand how a defense can give up that many points, especially to a team like UCLA. UCLA really has not made a dent anywhere in college football. I mean, last time really UCLA was in top news was, I guess, Josh Rosen, which his team was terrible, but then also Brett Hundley a couple years ago, who was kind of a Heisman hopeful at the beginning of his senior season, but didn't do anything. So again, UCLA is not a great program, so for Washington State to do that, my goodness, that almost kind of lost all the respect that people had for Washington State building up the past couple of years, because a lot of people have been really building up Washington State as this really tough team, which they are. They're really an offensive powerhouse. But of course, as we just saw, defense is very lacking. And so again, that's just insane to me. So that's my college football week 4 review. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe as well as follow me on these different social media pages. And before I go, I have a fun and awesome announcement. Now, a couple weeks ago, I released a video about some upcoming things with our storytelling company, Raven Stories, and some comic books. And I told you I would be telling you when the Tale of 3 comic book volume 1 would be released. And it is. It's released. It is on Amazon.com, available right now. The link's in the description down below. Be sure to check that out. Get your own copy today. It's a very fun story. A very great way to kick off a 3-part tale. And again, we have some more stuff coming up very soon within the next couple months, and we're really excited about. And so again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.